What's up, guys? We are continuing with the Beatles catalog. As I've said before, I'm going to try and cover as much of their music as I possibly can. These are another two tracks from 1963, both of which were #1 hit singles in their time. The first track is called I Want to Hold Your Hand, which was actually the Beatles' first #1 hit in the US. Now, the track was written in a way that a lot of early Beatles music was written, which Paul McCartney describes as eyeball to eyeball. So it's John and Paul basically sitting next to each other on a piano with a notebook, or just each other's kind of vocals, coming up with the melodies and the lyrics for their songs. Pretty cool, and I think it is one of the tracks that has been described as a real kind of basis or perfect example of early Beatles records. So here, let's check it out. This is I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles.
Something I think you'll understand when I say that something. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. Oh.
Okay. What I find most interesting about this journey that I'm taking, where I'm trying to go through all of their music, especially trying to hear as much of their early stuff as possible, and then eventually getting to the later stuff, is hearing the evolution. Because I have heard A Day in the Life at this point, and when I heard that record, even being born in '95, removed from this culture and this music completely, it blew me away. Conceptually, I thought it was brilliant. The ideas, the imagery that they used. When I hear the early stuff, I don't feel that way. One thing that I noticed, or maybe a sort of theory that I have, is they're writing the lyrics to fit the melodies. I think they're more concerned with the sound at the time. I mean, lyrically, it's not, the most impressive thing, especially when you hear a song like Blackbird, which is lyrically so impressive. It's quite a simplistic song.
Please say to me, let me be your man. Say to me, you let me hold your hand. You let me hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. And when I touch you, I feel happy inside.
Like that. It's just very pure, let's say unoffensive kind of lyricism. Is a kind of genius of its own as a songwriting duo. You're thinking, I imagine them to sitting there thinking with each other, like, how do we make an impact? Well, it's not going to be by, turning all the tables over at this moment in time. Let's write something that is palatable by our audience, which takes a type of genius.
It's such a feeling that my love I can hide, I can hide, I can hide. Yeah, you got that something I think you'll understand when I say that something. I want to hold your hand. Feel happy inside. It's such a feeling that my love I can hide, I can hide, I can hide. Yeah, you got that something I think you'll understand when I feel that something. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand.
Okay, I have a couple of things to say about the track. I think it's a cool song. I think for the listeners who grew up with this music and it holds memories, and you guys have experiences to this thing that will be very different to my own. You have to understand that I am definitely coming at this from completely different ears, right? Born in the 90s, 27-year-old, grew up with hip hop. This just isn't my cup of tea. A lot of you guys have heard me say things like, I like attitude, bass, heavy drums. This doesn't fit that. And generally with the Beatles music that's hit me, there's a lot of it that has been fantastic. It's been the fantastic concepts and the writing and the different textures and the sounds that they create in their later albums with the psychedelic influences and all these different kind of genres that they tested out, or you can even say started. But this isn't quite there yet. And so this is why it's interesting to me to hear the evolution of this band, where it started and where it went. So this is, I guess, the starting point. So cool track, man. Cool song. On to the next. Roll Over Beethoven was a cover of a Chuck Berry track. Chuck Berry is a very influential figure in terms of the Beatles, particularly John Lennon, who cites Chuck Berry as a huge influence. And it's a cover that was actually vocalized mainly or only, looks like solely, by George Harrison, which is a pretty cool early, I think, insight into learning about George Harrison a little bit. I think most of the focus lies or is heavily on McCartney and Lennon. And I think it's always interesting when they allow the spotlight to be on the other two members of the band too. I find it very interesting. So here we go. Let's check out this cover. This is Roll Over Beethoven by the Beatles. Oh yes. Lead guitar on this is.
We're gonna write a little letter, gonna mail it to my local DJ. It's a rocky little record, I want my jockey to play. Roll over Beethoven, gotta hit it again today. You know my temperature's rising and the jukebox blows a fuse.
Harrison's voice though.
A heart beating rhythm and my soul keeps us singing the blues.
Okay, so this is obviously a Chuck Berry cover, so I can't go into the lyrics too much. I will say they're very, very witty, especially that last bit, Roll Over Beethoven, tell Tchaikovsky the news. It's kind of hilarious. I also saw another quote by John Lennon who said, if rock and roll had another name, it'd be called Chuck Berry, which I think is a cool, very cool quote. This is much more my flavor, man. It's faster. It's got a lot more attitude. It's got this kind of kick and a bounce to it. I really love the sound of this thing, and especially Harrison's delivery on this thing. It just kind of flows out of him beautifully. Each line just smooth. I love it.
Rocking pneumonia, I need a shot of rhythm or blues. I think I call it off the rider sitting down by the rhythm reviews. Roll over Beethoven, rocking in 2x2. Well, if you feel it and like it, you get your lover and reel and rock it. Roll it over and move on up, just travel further and reel and rock it. Roll it over Beethoven, rocking it 2x2.
As covered as the Beatles are, because they're probably one of the most covered bands of all times, what I find really almost ironic is how good they are covering other people's music. They had a lot of that in the first album that I heard. I think that they do a great job of kind of adding their own style and flavor to this thing or whatever track that they're covering. And I feel the same thing here, especially Harrison, man. So I've heard Harrison's guitar on another song he did. It was with Alvin Lee. He's got a beautifully soulful style of guitar playing. It's smooth, it's wonderful, and I think all of his talents here are on display. Great thing about the Beatles, they let other people, not just Paul and John, shine, which is cool.
Early in the morning, I'm giving you the warning. Don't you step on my blue suede shoes. Hey, little, I play my fiddle. Ain't got nothing to lose. Roll over Beethoven, tell Tchaikovsky the blues. You know she winks like a glowworm, that's like a spinning top. She's got a crazy partner, all to see him real and rock. Long as she got a
whole time it's just Ringo in the back, just the whole time the cymbal, the crash is just going off throughout the whole thing. It sounds very chaotic and alive. I definitely like this song more out of the two I heard. This one had that extra kick, the wit. I love that Tchaikovsky line. I mean, if anyone doesn't know, I'm sure you guys do. Tchaikovsky is another like early composer. So it's like Beethoven telling him to kick rocks, which is funny because I guess the Beatles were doing that with popular music too. More to do with the actual context of the songwriting and them as artists. Again, this is another picture for me, another snapshot of where they were in 63, which is a tight band with chemistry, able to play these kind of fun, short, simple songs that they were doing as live versions and put them onto records and do that well. But would I expect this band to go on and rewrite history with their music? Maybe not. There's inklings of it, but would you put your money on this band doing that? Probably not, which I think is, again, testament to their transformation as a band. But we'll see more of that soon, hopefully. So the next tracks I'll check out will probably be from 64. So I'll see you guys on that reaction.